残酷な天使のように少年よ神話になれ
Hello and welcome to another episode of Thom and Joe. I'm Joe.
I'm Tom.
And we are continuing with our exploration of Evangelion.
We are
hopefully
indeed.
Not as long as the last one, which was an hour and 45 minutes. I am sorry, we had a lot of baggage to clear there.
We had a lot of asides to go on, and sort of, we had to talk about the all of the background stuff that got in that happened before a single cell of Evangelion was drawn. So if you are listening to this and wondering what the hell we're talking about, go listen to day 1 first and then come back here. We are talking today about episodes 4 to 7 of the Evangelion TV series. These aired between October the 25th and November the 15th, 1995. So Joe, I think we need to talk about Rei eventually.
Yeah.
This episode.
I don't know how much we can talk about Rei. This might be the one where there's the least from me, because a lot of this is establishing Rei and then solidifying everything that's come before it. So,
this will be shorter.
is definitely not the most. I don't want to say uninteresting to talk about, but it's kind of repeating.
Yeah, it's where a lot of the narrative sort of heavy lifting is going on. We are basically so I think we obviously need to go back a little bit. So Rei has been a background character in episodes 1 to 4, and obviously we'll talk about episode 4 in a moment. So Rei is essentially our deuteragonist. She is the first other Eva pilot we're introduced to. She is interesting, and we obviously get into a little bit more of why she's like this. She's sort of shy in a different way from Shinji. She is very much the doll sort of thing. She very much is very almost a complete doormat. She follows orders to the letter. We've already seen Genda will just go, shove her back in the robot if Shinji won't do it.
She's very despondent.
Yeah, she is deadpan to the point of so she is voiced in Japanese by Megumi Hayashibara, who also voices another character we won't get into yet in this series. She is the pilot of Evangelion Unit 1, which is basically a prototype unit that was built before, obviously, Evangelion Unit... Evangelion Unit 0 was built before Evangelion Unit 1. She's voiced in English by Amanda Wynn Lee, who obviously... God, we could be here for 20 minutes about every role Amanda Wynn Lee plays.
Yeah. It should also be noted, Amanda Wynn Lee also was the ADR director of the original ADV dub. Mm-hmm. And she did a decent amount of the translating too. There is a kind of lost commentary track from the original release of End of Evangelion where that kind of explains her process, and it has a lot of interesting tidbits too. But she just comments on how much of a pain it was to just translate all of the technical language that Hideaki Anno is, and all of it would be used for just background things.
Stuff you already half hear in the background.
And even basic stuff that it'd be like, is that a thing? Is Bakelite a thing? And it's like, yep. That's Bakelite. Right.
Early plastic, yeah. Voiced by Brianna Palestina in the Funimation dub. mostly because I think as Amanda Winley has essentially retired from voice acting with a, or at least voice acting but in front of the microphone, I think, and Rhian Barley in the Netflix dub. Again, Rei is fairly uniformly great across the board.
Rei is pretty easy to make uniform in this series.
Joe's already voiced her. Joe, you're technically now a credited voice actor for Rei. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, like, Rei. So Rei started, which I'm just going to briefly mention. Rei is responsible for starting Moe. Which kind of Hideaki Anno, I feel, has never quite particularly reconciled himself with, because it's like, yeah. So Rei is intended, and Anno has always intended her to be, really alien. She is not meant to be cute. She is quite. There's not a creepiness. I hesitate to say creepy because the creepiness angle is sort of does come and go in Rei's thing. Rei is simply
there is an emptiness to her character that is unsettling.
Yeah, and every otaku took a look at it and goes, "That's adorable."
Yeah.
And Anno went, "What the fuck are you doing?"
And I want that.
Yeah. I was like, yeah. And she is, basically you can see, so many characters that sort of took Rei as influence.
Yeah, for better or worse. I will say, at least on the better, it did inspire a lot of, it probably inspired the more blank slate of Lane and Serial Experiments Lane to a certain extent.
Definitely. Yeah, I would say there's undeniably. And
although I did want to say Key the Metal Idol, but Key the Metal Idol came out in 1994, and I don't know. I don't think Evangelion was inspired by that, but there was definitely this fascination around the area with this dollish, empty characters.
So Anno basically goes to Sadamoto. I want you to create me a bitterly unhappy young girl with little sense of presence, which he excels with, and there's elements of, but she, there is this, and it's something that Anno gets into particularly in the rebuild films. Rei may be quiet and solipsistic and painfully passive, but she is still human. This is, and it's something that I feel Anno definitely does better in the rebuild films. To give her a grain, if not more, of agency.
Especially the big introduction to her character, which essentially it's set up where Shinji has to give the new nerve card to Rei at her house. And then he just lets himself in, red flag number 1, and then he walks into her bedroom and starts pawing around at her place, and then she comes out of the shower, and he sees her naked, and there's no reaction. There's absolutely no reaction, but it just gets, like, I know what they're doing. It's being creepy it's getting this creepy and unsettling as to measure her non-reaction to it. Like, it eventually gets to the point where Shinji is holding Gendo's old glasses from when Gendo rescued her from when Unit Zero went berserk. And Gendo's glasses are the only thing that mean anything to her in the room.
Yeah.
And so tries to get them back, and it falls over on her naked, and she has no reaction. And there's this quiet moment between them, and it's really weird and unsettling, and I am a 40-year-old man watching two 15-year-olds kind of.
Yeah, and I feel
it's like okay, I can see why they in the rebuild they just cut down the scene to the bare minimum.
Yeah.
You got the idea. I get it's like when the Wings of Oniamas when they had the rape.
Yeah, absolutely, and certainly I know. Yeah,
I know what you were trying to do here, but the way this was handled is a little bad because you have a lot of otaku dudes together making a thing, and there's not really this self-censor or reflection.
I mean, I do feel, certainly in the certainly obviously 1.0 will come. We'll keep sort of mentioning it. It does feel like Anno, because I think Anno does Anno cut this scene or certainly moderates it down, and it's sort of like 30-year-old me, not particularly good with the gender politics, now married, better at doing this up front. Yeah, so, but obviously we need to go back a bit, so we've obviously just skipped over an entire episode. Hedgehog's dilemma is Shinji basically going to pieces. So, basically, Shinji has, so...
The response to Shinji saving, there's this little thing before where Misato's going around and showing, this is what you saved, and shows Tokyo 3 at sunrise. And then we get into the day-to-day life, and Shinji's day-to-day life is not rewarding him for his good deeds. And nobody besides Misato is patting him on the back and saying, you did a good thing. Because we have, obviously, Toji's sister got injured, and he's making this rant about this. What was the Evangelion pilot doing? How can they be so careless and cause all of this stuff? And everybody is dispassionate, and it's just like, can you do this or not? If not, leave.
Yeah, and this sort of comes to a crux with basically just Gendo just walking away from Gendo, just ignoring Shinji. And yeah, this is where I need to sort of very, very, very briefly go. I sort of basically, feel a kindred spirit in Shinji because I am a depressive who, sometimes has problems seeing their self-worth. And some of this is painfully familiar. It's like, and basically Shinji has I'm going to be careful about using, obviously, giving Shinji a diagnosis. As I said, to repeat, I am not a trained therapist. Other people who are trained therapists have done much more detailed sort of dives into Shinji's psychology. To somebody who has, suffered from depression, Shinji basically has a dissociative thing, and I feel it's something that, that where, again, Anno is drawing from his own experience, because the visual way this works, the way that sort of Shinji sort of drifts from place to place, with, basically no reaction to anything, to the point he's basically in the countryside by the time he comes to so to speak. It's
like the places he goes, like he goes to a theater and similar parts in the city, and it doesn't look like he went there to go there because he wanted to. It's just where his mind or his body sent him, and he's not paying attention to any of it. And then it just cuts to the next thing. It's not he goes anywhere. It just he's in the next place now. And that's really good editing to indicate a dissociative episode.
Yeah. and he is, we basically see him go on, travel across Tokyo 3, and there are some beautiful shots in this where it's just like, the sadness and the melancholy and the emptiness of Shinji's life sort of basically comes to the fore, and you get the most famous of which is the train shot. So and Anno returns to train imagery repeatedly throughout the series, and you know he regards trains as I guess a vehicle of emotion. You know, where they you know there are, particularly later in the series, there are moments where the train is the transitive sort of space, and particularly an end where they use to great effect. You know, it becomes symbolic of Shinji's changing mental state. So essentially, Shinji goes, right. Well, Misato basically gives him an ultimatum of, well, if you're gonna keep doing this, Shinji, and if you're gonna keep having, if you don't think you're mentally up to it, we're not forcing you to stay and pilot, Unit 1. Rei can do it, and it is a really painful scene. It's like, and it's sort of it's the first time you really get a sense of Misato also being, messier than she lets on under the surface. I mean, she's obviously, outwardly messy in, her appearance and, her heavy drinking, but, the mental turmoil that lies beneath, and eventually they both sort of realize, hang on a minute, we're basically a family, I suppose, to speak, and obviously Shinji resolves to stay,
and sort of also Masato is one of the few adults concerned about him. Like everybody else sees him as a tool or a person who is there, or or just straight up ignores him. So he has friends. I mean, they don't feel like friends, but then Toji and his other friend from school pop up, and they kind of make amends in a way, like in a very 90s. I don't know how you would do this, because Toji eventually decks Shinji for injuring his sister, and in return Toji's like, hit me. I will give you permission to hit me, and don't just fake it, and then Shinji properly decks him. Like, that he does not have that I don't want to hurt you. And, that shows up like various times, especially on that second angel where he just went berserk and started stabbing. So that is a part of Shinji where he does not have a safety sensor with certain things.
He's there, like, Shinji never feels like, completely inhuman, but there is like a sense of, I don't know how to act around other people, because other people are basically my distant father, who is, horrendously abusive to me in the round, and yeah, exactly.
If I may put my personal note in, I mean, what I joked that I made a choice of Lane instead of Evangelion. I think I have issues with like depression that are. Let's see here. It's mine is not a matter of self-worth. I would say, higher than average self-centeredness, and like there's a part of me that like can only like protect myself, and if everything else falls away, it kicks in and bad things happen. But it's more of the Lena, you are trying to do these good things for everybody, but you are actually harming everybody. And it would be better if you erased yourself from existence. That is more relatable to me.
Yeah.
And
which is a vibe that comes in later in Evangelion to a degree, but it's certainly not under Shinji that sort of basically starts to manifest. So that's episode 4. Episode 5, obviously, I think we've already spoken somewhat about, obviously, Rei's role in this. Rei is... Evangelion has, I feel, had a bit of a problem with what I would call shipping factionalism more than any other series, and it's like, it sort of basically goes, there are people on the internet and probably people in real life who have been arguing who is quote unquote best girl in Evangelion for 28 years, and it's like, please just stop. This isn't a popularity contest, except when it is when Asuka wins. That's the last popularity contest Asuka and Karu won. So, but anyway, it's basically, there is, Rei. I used to not dislike Rei as a character. I just didn't very much rate her, and it's like, I feel on this rewatch of Evangelion, this is about the first. So full disclosure, this is about the first time in about 7 or 8 years I've watched Evangelion, and it feels, as you do when you return to work, you go, oh, actually, there's a lot more nuance to this, and Rei is sort of a tragic figure, I guess, because, again, it's something that Anno tries to to make amends for in the rebuild films. But here she's, her existence is basically danger or death, or and there's what's your connect? Well, what's your and we get this in obviously the later episode. The episode 6, which is sort of a two-parter with episode 5, and you go, what's your reason for piloting the Eva? Well, it gives me purpose, as I don't have any other meaning apart from the Evangelion. And it's like, do you not see how this is really sad?
And it's with a lot of Eva, it's people will eventually become human, or at least try to make connections with each other as it goes along. There will be a bad end, but
before there's a good one.
But it,
that's many episodes away.
when you're not thinking about, oh, I want to fuck this person, there, and then you go thinking about the purpose, it gets, a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this sort of two-parter episode introduces us to Ramiel, who is a screaming pentagon, a screaming sort of a screaming diamond. And
best way you can put it.
He screams. He basically arrives, and so basically Rei's sort of, Shinji has his meeting with Rei. Rei basically arrives. They arrive at the Geo front. Obviously we get a flashback of when the last time Evangelion Unit 0 was tested, and it went very, very badly wrong.
And we get uncharacteristically kind Gendo Ikari.
Yeah, which again, and it's like, you go, hang on a minute, Gendo has this side to him that Shinji never sees, and it's, and yeah, absolutely, he's an abusive asshole, but he's there is a humanity to Gendo. He is, not he is a monster. I said, your mileage on whether Gendo is or isn't a monster, may vary, but I mean, there is nuance to Gendo. I feel, that obviously characters have come along in Gendo's wake who are, that sort of magnificent bastard sort of thing, and they are just bastards. But I feel that by having that side to Gendo, it's something again the rebuild films do well. It's to sort of humanize Gendo to an extent.
It's with a lot of things. It's like people reflecting and learning how to forgive, or at least understand their parents or how it went wrong. There's
absolutely. There's a lot of parental guilt. There was a lot of this
in anime, and there was a lot of this like at this time of the rebuilds. Like if Trails of Cold Steel has a terrible father figure who is manipulating everything, and it could be just Falcom ripping off Ava because they ripped off everything else, but also there is that, you know, big understanding why these people are these monsters, and understanding
and I feel if Anna
at least understanding them and getting to a point to forgive them.
For sure. I think it is a trend that definitely comes up a lot in Japanese media, sort of similar to the seemingly the fairly nascent trend of sad dad video gaming. You know, it's basically the people who grew up, you know, making things like Evangelion, etc., and, you know, who basically started their creative process in the lost decade of Japanese history, going, we've become as fucked up as our parents. You know, we're not good people, and, you know, in the same way, you know, the boom years of the 2000s, you know, for, you know, the Western gaming industry has sort of led to a lot of people who, you know, were young men at that period going, oh God, we're fathers. Oh no, it's time to make games about fatherhood. But
although I will say, full discretion, I do not talk to my father. I have no intention to, but I am not at that point yet where I am willing to forgive. But I am, and I am not, under reflection, a seriously fucked up parent either. I did not learn what my kids' fears are and then played them off like a joke, like my father did. So I try to best to understand my kids' fears and, you know, do my best to keep them away from it, instead of when I'm looking over a ledge pretending to push me off a ledge. So
yes. But yeah, so we get the introduction of Ramiel, Screaming Diamond Extraordinaire, who basically is Ramiel is a great design for how simple it is, which is basically it's a giant blue diamond. It is like
that can shift its form a little bit, and it screams. It doesn't have like a face or a voice like one of these normal creatures would. It is a thing, and like
it screams.
The essence of it is unknown.
So again, it's got. I mean, it basically arrives, fires a laser beam, nearly kills Shinji, and then starts drilling into the Geo front. I mean, you got to admire the simplicity of the design, and essentially a plan is hatched to defeat it. And it's again, and you know, I like Ramiel's design. You know, obviously by this point the series has sort of started to go, these angels have really similar to have not only the same DNA as each other, despite, you know, being radically different in appearance, but are really, really spookily close to humans. It's like this might come up later in the series as a plot point.
I will say it is done better in the rebuild, where they have much more money to do far more with Ramiel.
Oh god, yeah. Ramiel in the rebuilds are just like, oh my god. I mean, some of the angels do get an upgrade in the rebuilds, but Ramiel's is like full on just rebuild it from scratch and make it better.
Like the rebuild one is a lot of the things I do not like about what Anno loves about his childhood shows. And it's just like, it's things like Ramiel kind of make it for me so that I like it.
Oh yeah, Ramiel is like full on just a tokusatsu monster. It's like, it's one of these monsters of the week where they've gone, we've run out of budget. Make it a blue diamond that shoots a laser beam. It is these couple of episodes are the most tokusatsu I think Evangelion gets. Obviously you got the personal drama with Rei, but this is like Anno going, no, I'm going to make a tokusatsu show. Which I feel like
how they handle foreshadowing of like what's going on up front. Like their whole plan is to make a sniper rifle out of the entire electrical bank of Japan.
It is, yeah. So I feel we need to sort of unpack tokusatsu a little bit, because it is a major influence on Evangelion, even though Joe doesn't like Godzilla movies. Tokusatsu, it's I have like gently floated the idea of doing a Godzilla season, but it would just be me excitably jumping up and down and Joe going, you know, these aren't very good. It's like, I know, Joe, but that's
45 minutes trying to kill it, and they can't kill it. Gee, I wonder if this next attempt they're going to do is going to kill Godzilla.
Yes, the famously easy to defeat Godzilla. That oh look, there's another monster. Oh, now we're talking. Yeah. So Tokusatsu is a Japanese sort of basically it's the best. It basically translates as special effects, special filming. It sort of basically builds into two branches, which is Daikaiju, which is stuff like Godzilla, which is basically big monsters fighting each other, and Evangelion undeniably takes influence from that. Anno's since gone on to make two Daikaiju films in the shape of the very, very good indeed Shin Godzilla and Shin Ultraman, which I haven't seen yet. The other half of Tokusatsu is stuff like Kamen Rider, which again Anno's made a film of. It's almost like this man is absolutely obsessed with special effects and doing cool stuff, and there's sort of like. And obviously, Anno ironically did an Ultraman film when working at Gydex, where he was Ultraman, and it's sort of nice to see. We'll get to sort of Hideaki Anno's sort of extracurricular films towards the end of this season, but it's sort of nice to see Anno do a little bit of Tokusatsu stuff. I really like these two episodes. There is a nice sense of tension to it. It's a nice, alongside the character building for Rei, there's a bit of character building for Shinji. I feel, Shinji starts to feel like, he's not a pushover all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a certain amount where he's starting to participate in this. He's starting to be a willful participant in these events. I mean, he still has his reservations and a lot of them, but at the very least, he is starting to act on his own behalf and to the extent the behalf of Rei, because Rei gets to the point where she almost dies and he has to go save her like Gendo went to save her. And it starts to be, Shinji has an agency, but he, yes, his agency is basically going, are you sure this is going to work? What about Ayanami? Are you sure Ayanami's going to be okay? And it's like, it's pretty sweet. It's really, really sweet how much, Shinji goes in like 2 episodes from... I don't care about anything, and frankly, if I die, it's like to go, no, Ayanami, you've got to live because things are going to be okay, and you should smile more. And it's actually really sweet to sort of, in another world where sort of Anno sort of, isn't making Evangelion with the tremendous weight of depression upon him. Rei goes in a completely different direction, becomes more fleshed out, and you do see that little bit in the rebuilt films with obviously Rei's character arc. But and when we actually get to the mission itself, it is really it is Hideaki Anno doing things, and Shiro Sakuchi going dun 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 dun. Yep, that B2 007 from the James Bond soundtrack. The track it's not the James Bond theme, it's the theme specifically called 007.
Yeah, the track is called Decisive Battle, but the
key difference is they have that like really whining guitar in the background.
Yeah,
that's also in Nadia.
Yeah, it is kind of nice to sort of we haven't talked about Sakaguchi's score much really so far. I mean, I feel it. I feel it. It plays a part when it needs to. There's like, it's not an intrusive soundtrack. When it needs to be dramatic, it is dramatic. When it is, but Masato gets this really boisterous theme, which is like, basically sounds like something that would be on like a 90s, sitcom.
Or a 90s date simulator. Yeah, it's just like when she's waking up in the morning and greeting the main character and their childhood friends and and it's got a charm to it. Yeah, so, and obviously you get a lot of piano, these piano pieces, the sort of the music is, I never find Saguchi's score particularly, there's no moment where it feels overplayed, and obviously now he's become Anno's sort of composer choice. There are some standout tracks which we'll get to later in the when the series goes all subversive is when the score plays a far more notable
though not all of it is by Saguchi, so
that too, but
I mean, the guy is an extremely good composer, and apparently did a Final Fantasy VI album, which is something I didn't know. Anyway, so yeah, we basically get this really good battle scene, where Rei comes to Shinji's defense. Rei's great. This is like the moment I go, Rei's really sweet, and kind of a badass despite doing this in a self-sacrificial way, and she like uses the space shuttle to block Ramiel's laser beam, and the entire Japanese power grid gets used as this sort of thing. Evangelion does occasionally lean into sort of small n nationalism. It's like I feel it is something that doesn't really get talked about with relation to sort of modern anime. It obviously manifests in some series more than other, but to the extent that when you had the Tohoku earthquake in 2011, like one of the major things, because obviously this involved a power station. Obviously, the Japanese national grid was having massive problems with power. Was like named after the mission on this, which sort of indicates God, one, how many otaku there are now have just permeated into actual normal society, and B, how kind of big Evangelion is.
Yeah, and it's kind of shows a difference between like certain Eastern and Western cultures. Like I'm not going to be monolithic, but there is certainly the need for Japan to show how much they can all come together and do this big, gigantic thing. And it's even more so than in America, where it would just be this one really heroic, really genius person doing it.
Yeah. I mean, and absolutely. I mean, I would struggle to ever see this in like an American action movie. We're going to use the entire American national grid to fire this laser, and my friend's going to stop the laser from attacking. Yeah, it very much as I said, Anno's politics have never really come to the surface. He's never felt particularly politically disenfranchised or particularly politically neutral, and obviously Shin Godzilla particularly goes into again small n nationalism, but it's basically everybody coming together to defeat this thing, not just Shinji and Rei. It's a theme that
although looking back at it, like 1995 had there were like two different directions. There was Evangelion, which had they set off a nuclear bomb and it did nothing, and that's based on the Godzilla stuff. And then there was Independence Day, where they had like launching a nuclear bomb and it does nothing. That's more War of the Worlds, that nothing they do. So it's weird that they had like two eerily similar scenes that came from two different origins.
Just don't expect Shinji to fly a fighter plane into one of the angels. That was a very strange film. Anyway, so yeah, essentially Shinji and Rei win the day, and despite we get Ramiel kind of actually goes down like a complete sucker, to be honest, given how powerful it is. It's like, oh, we've drilled through all the way, and now I'm gonna sort of just fire my laser and then just wait for you to fire. It's like, didn't you literally just shoot anything that came into contact with you? It's like, anyway, but yeah, so we have that episode, and we sort of, and Shinji comes to Rei, in an echo of Gendo, as we saw the previous episode, comes to obviously Rei's rescue, and you get this very, very sweet scene where, going, don't throw your life away because you're important too, and it's very sweet. It's very sweet.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of thing that at this point, Evangelion is sort of it's certainly it's trying to make movement upwards from Shinji is a pushover and deeply unhappy, and look, Shinji's got friends now, and gets on well with his co-pilot, and everything's gonna be okay, definitely.
Yep. Certainly, everything's going to be okay. Yeah,
it's okay.
Yep,
and nothing will go wrong.
And then we go to the very next episode where something does go wrong.
But Jet Alone is sort of like the weird one-out episode. So every other major threat in this is an angel, or it's an angel. So we have 17 angels across the entire series, some of which take a couple of episodes to kill, and some of which obviously go down like a complete sucker. And but basically this is like the only human sort of adversary, so to speak, that we get. And it also starts to lift the lid on the sort of the nefarious stuff that's going on below the surface. So we get Ritsuko and Shinji basically go. Ritsuko sort of starts to go into a little bit more detail about what second impact is. We get second impact for real on much later in the series. We basically start to get Ritsuko starts to flesh out which tends to be her role throughout the first half of the series, is basically to info dump information, to come in, info dump information, and then disappear again. So there's that, and then they are basically then introduced to a prototype robot called Jet Alone, which everyone seems to forget. Like I have to confess, I forgot about Jet Alone. I had to completely have to confess, I forgot about Jet Alone. I forgot all about poor Jet Alone, Joe.
Yeah, I forgot about this episode too. I get why it's here. It's like to establish people aren't doing nothing. People are making other efforts to try to do it. It's just they're not working, or they're being intentionally sabotaged for reasons we will find out later. But and it kind of puts into context how Nerve is seen for the rest of it, and just kind of reestablishes that even in the apocalypse, even in light of just humanity's permanent extermination, we're still fussing about budgets. We are still fussing about politics and,
and being horrendously sexist.
And it is, we're still dealing with bullshit. We are going to go to our grave just tossing this bullshit at each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, it's like, you're being sexist in the ruins of the last version of your capital that got destroyed by basically Armageddon. But you do you, Jet Alone, guys. You do you. Jet Alone pretends it's important, and it really isn't. It's like, I'm important too. No, you're not, Jet Alone. You're You're like that Godzilla, like Jet Jaguar, the joke Godzilla character created by a Japanese. Yes, Trevor. Yeah, I'm important.
Yeah,
no,
I've seen that one just because it was a Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode, and it deserves to be one. That is,
it's not
Megalon
it
is
does
goofy shit.
It does, and again, it does feel like a sort of off, a bad tokusatsu film in places. Like, we've got this robot that's nuclear power, but is actually, it's gonna go rogue, and it's like there's no way this robot will go wrong, and then the robot goes wrong because of course it does.
It's another thing of like this kind of genre's like easy. Like you can tell what's going to happen and how it's going to happen from just basic dialogue, and this is Anno kind of replicating a basic version of one of those episodes. Yeah. So that's kind of why it doesn't get remembered. I mean, it does have points to it, but it is as subtle as being hit in the head with a sledgehammer.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, what it does very, very cleverly is it does do two things, or three things technically. One, God, everyone apart from Nerve does just seem to be completely incompetent. Like, like we don't need your robot that occasionally goes berserk and actually defeats its target. No, we're going to create this nuclear power thing that melts down within like 300 feet. It's like, yeah, that's gonna go really, really well. It's like we don't understand why you women at Nerve have got like a functioning biomechanical lad who sort of just occasionally goes a little bit crazy and smashes up Tokyo. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's not like
but it's totally not realistic in light of the 2020s tech bros who constantly reinvent the bus, except 4 times more expensive.
Elon Musk would build Jet Alone and claim it was better than Evangelion Unit 1. This is just 2015 Elon Musk. But no, it's basically God aren't these other people really hubristic, and it does the sort of thing of going, the Evangelions are very important, and basically nobody has can touch what Nerve are getting on with. Do we see Seele in this episode? I can't remember. Have we already bumped into Seele?
I don't know. That's another... I mean, we definitely got the feeling
council.
that Gendo Akari is sort of behind this sabotage. And
he's got a meeting with somebody on the
plane. Is not one of the people he trusts. Ritsuko is one. So there's this dynamic, because Masato has no idea what's going on, and she is doing everything she can, risking her life to stop this until they realize it stopped by itself.
Yeah, and this is where Evangelion does sort of lean into sort of the sort of more political conspiracy things that Anno, would have known from obviously stuff, his taste. I mean, obviously, his taste in Super Mario Nation and obviously older anime, but it is very much a conspiracy thriller that masquerading as a Super Sentai episode. And the only other thing I know about this episode is there's not really very much Shinji in it. I think this is like the least Shinji we get in like most of the first half of the season, and essentially all he does is turn up with the Evangelion Unit 1 and worry about Misato a bit, and then go back to being revolted by how sloppy she is and why she drinks in the morning. Yeah,
I mean, I think, a little placing of Misato and Ritsuko as these people who are at odds, but they are co-workers who, to a certain point, like each other, and to a certain point are separate from each other in ways that will define them later on.
Definitely, yeah. It is sort of I feel we need, it's easy to sort of overlook this episode or go, why did we why did we have this? And then it goes, but the reason why we've got this is because, it does this and this and the thing. There's no episode in Evangelion. We'll get on to, obviously, episode 14 again, which is the one that a lot of people tend to skip, which is like, but then again, it serves its purpose in the narrative.
Yeah, it's definitely not the island arc in Nadia.
Oh god, no. Which you can skip. Please skip the island arc in Nadia for your own sanity.
And once you get to the soundtrack, skip OST 3. That's the musical episode. Don't do it.
Please don't do it. Please, no. Yeah, so that's episode. Well, we did that in like half the time.
Yeah.
No, I was so this, So, I mean, we very, very briefly, obviously, we talk about the film obviously skips over Jet Alone because, of course, it does. Because it's like, we're like, let's end our dramatic film, which, ends up with Shinji and Rei sort of understanding each other with 20 minutes of wacky robot hijinks. And I understand that. I understand that, obviously, Anno's filleted it down and goes, this is really, this is served by the plot elsewhere anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much. But next, we are going to deal with probably the biggest bomb to the Eva formula so far, as we get introduced to Asuka Langley.
The best fucking character in all of anime. We'll see you next time.
Yep, see you next time. We'll have that fight later.